My name is Minko Gechev. I'm the product lead for Angular at Google. So if you have been in the Angular community lately, I'm sure you have heard the term the Angular Renaissance, this concept. And this simply refers to us being laser focused on building a framework that enables you to deliver web applications with confidence. That's it. We're really focused on delivering for our developers. We want to help you build performant applications for the use cases that you're targeting. We would like to also help you have a great developer experience and enjoy building these applications. And last but not least, have really stable and reliable experience. We want to be predictable. We want to just make it joy for you to build applications without worrying about non-supported core packages or things not being well polished. So that's why every single thing we do goes through a bunch of reviews and it is tested at Google for about 6 months or so until we deliver it to everyone externally. All right, so since my role is to be the product lead, I would like to share a little bit more with you on how do we approach shaping our roadmap and how do we develop features. First, we go through a very thorough phase of requirement gathering. We're building a framework for web developers, so we want to make sure that we're really addressing your needs. We do a lot of interviews. We talk to different people in big and small companies. We see how they're using Angular and what their challenges are. We spent a lot of time on GitHub, understanding feature requests and issues, finding patterns. We also spent a lot of time on social media. We get a lot of perspectives from Blue Sky, from LinkedIn and X, and we get an idea what the people there need, or at least the louder voices. From there, we try to balance with the rest of the developer population. We have an in-person conversations. We look at industry and business trends. For example, we see what are the most typical web applications that developers are building nowadays and try to make sure that Angular is well suited for this use case. We look at other frameworks as well to see what are they up to. And finally, we validate everything by running large surveys. Now we have roughly an idea about our roadmap. We go through a lot of planning, we talk to different people within Google, outside of Google. We align with each other to make sure that our team really knows what we're supposed to be working on and we have the same idea for what success means. And we go through the feature development phase, where when we're working on a pretty complicated feature, we do a lot of prototyping. From there, when we have an idea how this feature would look like, we do requests for comments. We do more prototyping based on the feedback we have received from developers. From there, we do user studies often to see how developers are actually using this feature. We do developer preview unless we need to do even more prototyping. So we built a production-ready solution that is in developer preview. We see how developers are using it, so we go through a process of validation, and finally we graduate it to stable. This is a pretty lengthy process, but we have been really successful with it for a couple of features now. For example, standalone components went through exactly this process. We did it with signals, with signal inputs and all these reactive APIs. We're doing it with incremental hydration and so on and so forth. So we did that process consistently starting version 14 when we shipped standalone components. In version 15, we shipped developer preview of faster builds with ESBuild. Version 16, signals. Version 17, deferrable views. And in order to reflect the future-looking nature of Angular, we shipped a branch refresh. Version 18, we shipped Zoneless, and version 19, Incremental Hydration. Now, these are only some of the highlights from the Angular Renaissance. We have hundreds of other features. I couldn't fit them all on one slide. But together with this, we are also collaborating with our teams internally. We have the Wiz team that is working right across the hallway from us. The Wiz team is the other framework that we're using at Google to build web apps. You know that Angular has been historically more focused on enterprise-like clients. You can think about Google Cloud or Google Analytics. And Wiz has been focused on very performance-sensitive applications. But over time, we wanted to get some of the features of Wiz in Angular and vice versa. So I would like to share a little bit some of the insights from this too, some of the features that I'm going to be talking about in the next 10 minutes or so are very highly inspired by Wiz. So now let me get to the highlights from 2024. And I'm saying the highlights just because I looked at the version 19 blog post, and only the version 19 blog post by itself was 23 pages. So I can't really cover this whole thing in one talk. That's why I have focused on my personal highlights from the year. Let's start with version 18. And I'll say my personal highlight from version 18 was for sure Zoneless. Making zones optional helps you to have faster initial render because you don't have to download Zone.js and you don't have to wait for it to execute and monkey patch all these APIs. You have better debugging experience because you don't have Zone.js in the middle of all your stack traces. You have improved interop since you can't have multiple versions of Zone running on the same page, or just a random library that has request animation frame running change detection cycles. And also has better alignment with the web platform. Monkey patching browser APIs has never been a good idea, and we're finally making it better. You can try the experimental Zoneless support today. Just make sure you specify the provide experimental Zoneless change detection in your providers, in your app bootstrap. From there, you can go to your Angular.json and remove the Zone.js polyfill. That's pretty much it. One thing that I would strongly recommend you doing if you're using Zoneless is to switch to on-push change detection strategy. Your application would almost automatically become Zoneless. There might be some edge cases that you need to resolve, but if all your components in your whole application are using on-push, your application will be pretty much Zoneless. Here's how Zoneless would work. Now imagine that I click on this Go Zoneless component. When I click on the Go Zoneless component, Angular is going to schedule a change detection because it assumes that if an event happened, probably we change the state of the app. From here, we're going to call the handle click method that is going to set the name to Zoneless Angular. And the name here is a signal. So setting a signal that we have bound to inside of our template will trigger another change detection cycle. Both change detection cycles will coalesce into one since Zoneless uses coalescing, and change detection would execute only within this component and respectively updates the name. That's it. Now, there are more complicated use cases with more complicated scenarios, but roughly the mental model is the same. Now, let me talk about event replay. So how many times you have opened a web app, started interacting with it just to see that nothing is really happening and just your events are lost, you're frustrated? Well, we wanted to target this use case, and we saw what Google search has been doing for the past 10 years. It has been buffering events until the application becomes interactive and replaying them when all the scripts are loaded. So here you can see when I start clicking on the button, nothing happens because the application is not interactive. But once we download all the code associated with it, we add 4 items to the shopping cart. We introduced support for this in the Angular server-side rendering model in version 18, and this solution is very heavily inspired by Wiz. It in fact uses the same abstraction that Wiz has been using on Google search for the past 10 or 12 years. It is called JS Action or Event Dispatch, and you can use it today. It is enabled by default for all new Angular applications, and if you haven't enabled it, you can, if you are not building a new application, you can enable it in your existing applications with event replay. This is the exact same code that is running on Google search that will be running in your web apps as well. Now let me jump to highlights from Angular version 19. Probably my personal favorite is incremental hydration. So with incremental hydration, you send a request to the server, you get your application rendered, but you don't get any of the JavaScript for this application on the page yet. You only get this small event dispatch library that I showed you previously that buffers events and replays them. When the user interacts with your application, what happens is that we send the request to download the components that are responsible for handling these events, and after that, event replay or event dispatch replays these events. This is a great way to reduce the amount of JavaScript that you're shipping to the browser and to improve total blocking time in addition to interaction to next paint. All right, now let us look at how you can use this feature, because it's very tightly coupled to another feature that we shipped in version 17 last year called deferrable views. With deferrable views, you can wrap part of your template into a deferred block and lazily load it. For example, here I'm saying that when the placeholder is visible, I would like you to download the calendar component and render it. And respectively, I can specify an error block. So this manages all the complexity of intersection observers, plus all the complexities of loading states automatically for me. Using incremental hydration, all you need to do is just change this on viewport to hydrate on viewport. Now, if you're using server-side rendering, the server is going to render the calendar component. It is going to be visible on the screen, and it is going to get interactive only once the calendar component enters the viewport. In this case, Angular is going to download the associated JavaScript and hydrate the component. So it has very similar kind of semantics and very intuitive because of deferrable views, but operates differently since it involves server-side rendering. You can try incremental hydration, in fact, today in version 19 by using with incremental hydration as part of your provide client hydration provider. All right. So with incremental hydration, I want to share one more feature that is related to server-side rendering, and it is render modes. Now we provide an additional server config, server routing that enables you to specify which routes you would like to be server-side rendered, pre-rendered, or statically type generated with SSG, and which you would like to server-side render. For example, in this case here, we have specified that we would like to server-side render the login, client-side render the dashboard, and pre-render the products. And for each individual product, we can fetch the associated product list and get the individual IDs so that we can provide values for the placeholder or the parameter ID. All right, that's everything on the server for now. Now let me jump to a couple of developer experience improvements. Hot module replacement is something that we brought back. We have it for templates and styles. For templates, it is not enabled by default for now. It is under a flag, but you can still give it a try. Let us know what you think. If you face any issues, make sure you report them on GitHub. Additionally, we made signal queries, signal inputs, the new outputs, and model inputs stable. So feel free to use them in your production applications. To make it easier for you to use them in your existing applications, you also shipped schematics that allow you to convert your existing inputs, outputs, and view queries to the new modern APIs. But still, the existing APIs, we're not going to deprecate them anytime soon. We have not even discussed that. Even though I'll still recommend you to move to the new ones, don't worry, you can still keep using what you're used to. Now let us look at 2025. So first of all, I'm going to share only some of the things that we're planning to work on. If you would like to see a more holistic view, have a look at Angular.dev/roadmap. A couple of major themes that we're thinking about are continuing to work on Zoneless and reactivity. We would like to graduate Zoneless into stable in 2025, ideally. We're focused on incremental adoption of Angular and improving the authoring experience. Now, the goals for the authoring experience is to reduce boilerplate. Currently, you have double imports. You need to import a component and after that, import it in your components import, right? That's a little bit unnecessary and weird. We'd like to reduce the boilerplates with that, and I'll show you how exactly in a moment. With the authoring, we'll also want to enable single file computation to further speed up build times. We want to reduce the indirection. You don't want to have double imports. We want to have simpler experience. We want to simplify the transition to this easier and more intuitive authoring experience, and additionally to be a little bit less weird. Really, nobody needs selectors in this day and age, and we have proven that. We have certain use cases for which selectors are very, very valuable, and we'll continue supporting them. But in most cases, you just want to take a component and directly use it within your template. And additionally, we would like to make that a long process. We know that even small syntactical change is not trivial. So that's why we have incremental steps that we're going to go through to improve the authoring experience without any breaking changes and with a simple transition. Now, let me show you what we're thinking about in 2025. This is, of course, just early plans. All of that we're going to share in an RFC, and everyone is going to have a comment, like the right to comment and provide their feedback, so that we can consider this feedback in the final design and implementation. Here we have an app component that uses a button. It uses the mat button component, and additionally it uses a tooltip, a directive. So see how you have to import the mat button and the tooltip once from the component library, and after that you have to put them in the imports in your component metadata. Seems redundant. And there is this indirection between the imports and what is happening in the templates. It's really, your selectors could be anything, so it's really not too intuitive which imports you're actually using in your template. What we'd like to do instead is this. That's one sample syntax. We're going to definitely consider different variations and collect more feedback in user studies and RFCs. Remember this long process that I shared for future development. Here we're directly using the mat button component from the original import, and we're applying the directive right on top of this component. So here is the difference. This is a small change, but it is going to further reduce the cognitive overhead for new developers getting started with Angular. And it's going to make your development process overall a little bit simpler. Well, these are the highlights from 2024 and some of the features that I'm excited about in 2025 that I want to share with you. I hope you all have wonderful meetup and wonderful holidays. I'm going to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, so a big thank you to Minko for his presentation. And normally we would have a standard Q&A session at this point, but since Minko is not with us live today, we had to do this in another way. So last week we reached you all on our social media asking about any questions that you may have to Minko. And then Natalia from our team collected all of the messages we got from you and sent these questions to Minko, who was kind enough to record another video with his answers. So let's get to this special Q&A session now.
To answer the questions from Natalia that she shared with me before the event. And that's my second attempt trying to respond to them. First time I had my microphone muted, so fingers crossed this time I didn't mute myself. The first one is, any spoilers on when can we expect the first preview of unified signal-based forms? Yeah, just for everyone and also folks who are unfamiliar with the effort, for 2025 we have plans to parallel efforts around forms. The first one is to improve the developer experience of the current form system with signals. And the second one is to develop a new solution that covers all the existing use cases of forms and also incorporates new feature requests that we have received over the years. So just let's say making forms more scalable and also making sure that they work really well with signals. They're signal first. So both of these are planned for 2025. It's hard to give you an exact estimate because we don't have designs yet. We don't know how large these efforts would be. We have a lot of ideas, and when we have something more specific, we're going to share an RFC. So the second question is, recently we have seen a lot of exciting updates around signals and Zoneless schedule based on signals, which has been available in preview for some time. Are pure signal components with Zoneless support on the horizon? So currently, if you enable Zoneless that is experimental, you're going to get Zoneless components that are using signals. I guess what we are thinking about signal-based components potentially is to enable even finer grained change detection. That instead of being for the entire template of the component is for individual views. We currently believe that we're getting enough, like fine enough grained change detection that is per individual component with Zoneless. So we are not sure whether it's worth pursuing increasing the granularity even further per view. We're going to just continue listening to your feedback and from there decide whether we would like to further enhance signal-based components or not. Because this also comes with its own complexity. Introducing new type of components or introducing new type of change detection could make things a little bit more complicated. So we'll do it only if we find it to be required and if developers need that. The third question is the promise-based resource API an early sign of Angular moving away from RxJS-based HTTP client? Well, a couple of years ago, or I believe 2023, during ngconf we shared that we would like to make RxJS optional from Angular and all of its core features. And we're continuing that effort. So resource is likely going to be part of the story. If you had to choose just one, what do you think will be the most impactful Angular feature coming in 2025? We have been doing a lot of thinking around component authoring format. And just yesterday, I received the feedback from the Angular developer survey for 2024. And I saw that a lot of people really appreciated the changes we did with signals and with the new control flow and deferrable views. So if I had to guess what would be the most impactful feature, it will be something around authoring format. Just because this is something that we interact with every single day. And if we reduce the boilerplates and make it easier for you to build components, this would just overall make your life as developers better. And this feature would be selectorless. That's what I'm going to vote for. It's going to make my development life way better for my Angular apps that I maintain. And it's going to remove a whole level of indirection between importing a component and importing it again inside of your component metadata. It's just redundant right now. So just one disclaimer about that. Selectorless doesn't mean that we're killing selectors from Angular. We're just going to introduce selectorless components, components which we can directly use in your application without depending on their selector. You can just import them and use them based on the symbol that you're referencing from the current module scope. So the next question is, with Angular evolving so quickly and all the existing new features being introduced, don't you worry that the pace of change might overwhelm developers and businesses trying to keep up and integrate all these new updates? Yeah, another good question. Definitely we have been moving forward a little bit faster. Previously we were moving pretty slow and people were dissatisfied that they're not getting the features that they need. Now you're getting all the features and you'll be getting even more. The thing about these features is that you can you can use them as you need them. You don't have to necessarily use all the features that we ship in all of your applications. Because at the same time, we're keeping the existing API surface of Angular stable. We are not deprecating ng modules, and we're not planning to do that in foreseeable future. Same with Zone.js. Still though, we would prefer if developers are using the modern APIs that we provide so that you can have faster applications. overall, that's how we measure the success of Angular. We look at different sources and we try to figure out how much faster we made web apps. So to enable you to move to these new APIs, we also have schematics that are going to take your components and transform them to them. And the last question is, do you think Angular will be actively maintained 10 years from now? Or could the evolving web ecosystem render it irrelevant? So we would love to enable the web ecosystem to do everything that Angular does. The web platform, let's say. Something that we have been working on, in fact, is finding the commonalities between different web frameworks and introducing them to the web platform. With the pace of innovation that is currently happening in all the web frameworks, I don't see web frameworks becoming irrelevant. And with Angular innovating so much with incremental hydration and with fine-grained reactivity, deferrable views, I don't see that being covered entirely by the browser or other frameworks getting the guarantees that Angular provides for stability and innovation. So even though I hope the web platform makes frameworks irrelevant one day, I don't see that coming up anytime soon. All right, so that's all I had as questions. Thank you so much. And if you have more questions, make sure you reach out to me on Twitter. I'm available there, Gechev, same on Blue Sky and on LinkedIn. All right, see you soon. Bye.